Alright, today we are working on the two-door short bed, the f250 again. I am making a fuel cooler for it. I got a nice trans cooler here for it, which is good for fuels and oils. And one of these little cheap fans I had laying around. But I've got the fan mounted to this transmission cooler here that I'm going to mount in the back of the truck on the return side of this fuel tank. That's only a 15-gallon fuel cell. And that line right there is the return line. I need to mount that, but that's the return line from the engine back to the tank. This one's just a vent that I've got looped, just to let the tank vent. But I am going to put this transmission cooler in line of that return so it'll cool the fuel as it returns it back into the tank. Because this truck's got a return fuel system on it, and if you run the fuel in a 6.0 and in a lot of diesels, the fuel runs through the actual cylinder head. Like, this is the factory fuel lines on this. So the fuel comes out of that fuel bowl and into the front of the cylinder head, and then it runs through the cylinder head and then feeds the injectors that are inside of that cylinder head through the head. When you put a return fuel system on these trucks, there is another port in the back that you run as the outlet, and you come out of the back of the head and you run out of the back of both cylinder heads, and that runs into a regulator and out of the regulator and then back into the back of the tank. That's how that's plumbed. So you gotta think, if all that diesel fuel is running inside of the cylinder head, it's pulling all that heat out of the head, but it's also heating up the fuel at the same time. So that fuel, if you just keep circulating it, because it's a return style system, it just makes all the fuel come up to whatever the engine temperature is. It's basically acting like coolant inside the cylinder head. So I'm going to put a fuel cooler in, which is what I got over there. So I will put a break in that line. I'll make 2 brackets to mount that fuel cooler right here in the back of the truck. I'll put that fan in the puller, and it'll just cool the fuel off before it returns it back into the tank. That way it'll kind of knock some of that heat out of the fuel. And I'll probably wire that fan to my relays over here, because I've got 2 40-amp relays right there wired up for the fuel pump, which my batteries are here obviously. And I'll use the same arming switch to turn this fan on that I use to turn on the fuel pump relays. So as soon as you turn the fuel pump on, well, as soon as the fuel pump comes on, it'll turn that fan on. So it'll be its own system. But yeah, I don't know. Let's stop talking and get this crap done. All right, there's the cooler mounted in line. That's the return line coming in. Fuel cooler and then into the tank. Now I just gotta wire that fan up to a relay to make that thing come on. I got it mounted flat, but I got it cut out underneath it. It's cut out underneath the radiator there. So I'm gonna wire the fan to push, so it'll push the hot air down, and then it'll just pull out the back of the truck down the road. Now we are building plugs. Got one in there. Just crimp this other lead in. Plug. The other half started. Other plugs already on. This other end, and like I said, watch it. That plug on 2 sides, so weather tight. The bed, and we're gonna do our first cycle with the key and make sure the fan comes on. All right, I'm gonna turn the key on, and you should hear the fuel pump come on underneath on the side of the truck, and that fan should come on also. Nope. And when the fuel pump cycles off, the fan should go off with it. Prime. Yep, and fuel pump off, fan off. Let's go. Works perfect.